Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Well, welcome to the program today. We got a lot to cover, and we're going to start today in Venezuela. Now, obviously, this is not over. What is happening in Venezuela, what happened in Venezuela in terms of the election. Was it a free and fair election? Some would say yes, some would say absolutely not. Now, what's interesting is the statement by Kamala Harris. Now, look, Kamala Harris's ideology is far left, as is Maduro, the current president of Venezuela. Now, at the same time, where their ideologies meet in terms of authoritarian socialism, Maduro is backed and supports the Russian Federation. That then creates a conflict of interest for the cabal that runs the country and is trying to put Kamala Harris as the next figurehead. Now, here's her statement. Here is Kamala Harris's statement regarding the recent election in Venezuela. Now, please note this statement was then changed. It was then changed. Again, because of the global dynamics of this conflict. Not the fact that initially she was supporting Maduro because he's an authoritarian socialist, as is Kamala Harris. So here's her statement. The United States stands with the people of Venezuela who expressed their voice in today's historic presidential election. The will of the Venezuelan people must be respected. Despite the many challenges, we will continue to work towards a more democratic, prosperous, and secure future for the people of Venezuela. So look, that initial statement was seen by many as direct support for Maduro. Now, Kamala Harris then proceeded to get her pee-pee slapped. She was then told, hey, wait a minute. We get your ideology is with Maduro. We get you are an authoritarian socialist and you support that regime. However, Maduro is not aligned with the deep state of the United States. The United States and the people who are running the ununited states right now wants Maduro out of office. Now, was it a free and fair election in Venezuela? Probably not. Probably not. Indeed, Maduro is an authoritarian socialist, and he has no thoughts of relinquishing power whatsoever. And what's even going to more solidify Maduro's hold on power is his relationship with other nation states. Again, we are looking at games of state right now. It's just not the choice of the people of Venezuela. There are other factors weighing in on the powers that be in Venezuela. And obviously that's China, that's the Russian Federation. The Russians supply the Venezuelan Armed Forces, National Guard, Air Force, Navy with a wide range of military capability, both equipment and military advice. It is thought that the inner circle that protects Maduro, the inner circle of the security forces, are in fact Russian contractors. We know that Russian forces are on the ground in Venezuela. Russian naval assets visit Venezuela. If there were to be a change in regimes in Venezuela, obviously that would change as well, meaning the current Venezuelan support for the Russian Federation and vice versa. That would all change. Games of Thrones. Now you see how it, even though Kamala Harris's ideology, authoritarian socialism, is connected to Maduro's authoritarian socialism, but it's bigger than that. And Kamala Harris was thus informed. This is bigger than that ideology. So you must gravitate your support towards the opposition. Now, for folks that are watching the U.S. election and they watched the Venezuelan election, look, before the Venezuelan election, it was widely believed that the majority of the population of Venezuela was going to vote for the opposition. And Maduro did everything in his power to prevent that opposition from having a popular person on the ballot. Even then, it was widely believed by exit polls and polling data going into the election that the opposition would win. Maduro would be defeated. Now, we wake up post-election, and that's not the case. Maduro declares victory. Look, these are the same strategies that are going to be used here in the United States. The good old USA. People believe that Donald Trump is going to be the next president. And I fear, unfortunately, for most of these folks, they're going to wake up the next day and through vote manipulation, voting fraud, allowing anyone and everyone to have a mail-in ballot, even those who are not citizens of the United States. That is what is going to cause many of these individuals to have a lot of heartache. So polls may indicate that Trump is going to win. But with the current group that controls the White House, the current authoritarian socialists, backed by the deep state and the corporocrats, yeah, it's going to be like Venezuela. You're going to wake up the next day. They're going to wave their magic wand, just like 2020. And there it is. Kamala Harris, the cackling idiot, is your next El Presidente. That's it. But you know, that's why we have, here in the United States, the un-United States, that's why we still have a Second Amendment. Now, if Venezuelans had the right of mass firearm ownership, I imagine things may look a little different post-fraudulent election day. Could be wrong on that. Could be right. But an armed populace is much more difficult to subvert than a disarmed populace. And who wants to disarm the populace of the United States? Kamala Harris and her band of merry left-wing authoritarians. They want to take away your guns. And that's why they want to take away their guns. All right, let's go over to the ongoing war that is taking place between the Russian Federation and the Ukraine. Now look, things are not going well at all for the Ukrainians. The media here in the un-United States and the West is pretty silent on what's happening. Pretty silent indeed. Let's go over to the deep state map, and let's watch some of these envelopment operations that are taking place, especially within the area of Avdiivka, both to the north and northwest. This is where some of the most crucial fighting is taking place. And what I want to go back very quickly is towards the beginning of July. All right, here we are. We're essentially July 1st, okay? Now, pay close attention in this direction, northwest of Avdiivka, in this direction near New York, this area here. There was a crucial envelopment operation that's near complete in this area. So we're going to fast forward this where you, the viewer, can see exactly what is happening. Now look, remember, if this was a Ukrainian operation, if this was a Ukrainian offensive, this would be widely publicized here in the United States. The Ukrainian military is pushing Russian forces back. It is enveloping Russian forces. Russian forces are on the verge of collapse. That is what you would be hearing. But you're not hearing that, because that is what is happening to Ukrainian forces. Here we go. And there we are. A lot of Ukrainian units running from New York, northwest of Avdiivka, are just getting mauled by Russian forces. And again, it is the air capability of the Russian Federation, dropping dozens upon dozens of GLONASS guided glide bombs, the use of Iskander missiles, the mass use of heavy artillery along the line of contact is just degrading and slowly destroying the Ukrainian military. It's happening. And given that this is a war of attrition, as I've talked about before, we're going to simply reach a point where the Ukrainian military can no longer continue. Now, I have to ask the question if this has already been played out. I believe that just like a game of chess, this war right now has already been played out in the Russian Federation by the Russian High Command. They have a pretty good idea of when Ukrainian forces are probably going to resign. Chess. Who has the most grand masters? Chess is a game of strategy. It's a game of strategy. What nation state has the most grand masters of chess? It's the Russians. I believe right now the Russians have something like 300 grand masters. The United States may have about 100. So a third of what the Russians have in terms of grandmasters. And again, like a game of chess, this war of attrition has an end date, a calculated end date. Now, obviously, there may be a range of anywhere from months to as much as a year. But I think the Russians have calculated this. And like a game of chess, moving their pieces into position, they know how this is going to end. And unfortunately, in a war of attrition, it's going to take a while. It's going to take time. And I think the Russians right now are positioning their pieces. They are continuing the war of attrition. And they know ultimately how this is going to end. They're playing the long game. Unfortunately for us here in the United States, we play the short game. We're looking kind of at the here and now. We look at minor battlefield victories or things that can be construed as a minor battlefield victory. You'll hear about a sabotage event on a Russian aircraft or a group of Russian aircraft. But ultimately, that's not going to change the dynamic of what's happening within this conflict. It simply is not. It's not. The Russians are not stupid people. 300 grandmasters. And you don't think that sort of strategy comes into play within the Russian state? It does. It absolutely does. That's why the Russians encourage its people to play chess. Chess is very popular in the Russian Federation. Whereas chess not very popular, the United States. It's becoming less and less popular. Chess should be mandatory in U.S. public schools. It's not. Very few people know how to play chess. In Russia, it's mandatory. So I have a hunch that this has already been played out a multitude of times, and they, the Russians, know the end game. Unfortunately, here in the West, we have not played it out, and we don't know the end game. But the end game's coming. It's on the horizon. That's it for today. More to come, as always. Have a good day.